You're listening to audio from the Decidedly podcast. For more information, find us on Instagram at Decidedly Podcast.
I was surprised you walked in with Pepsi.
I hate that I walked in with Pepsi.
I know you do.
But on my way here, I stopped at the pharmacy, and that's all they had. Isn't that stupid?
There's no excuse for that pharmacy to only have Pepsi.
That's some
because it's
BS.
Not like a pharmacy has a distribution contract.
No. It's like a Walgreens.
Yeah,
like a big
they just
thing.
have a cool. Oh, like it was like a chain.
It was like a big chain. Yeah,
like the neighborhood pharmacy we go
to.
No.
In the cooler, it was empty.
Okay, so maybe they do have.
I don't know. They had something going on. I don't know what it was.
But I was just so shocked because it's like one thing to get Pepsi at the restaurant. You're like, I'm already here. I'm a captive customer. Like I was gonna get a cola and you don't have Coke, and so now I'm getting Pepsi. Fine. But for you to like get a bottle, you're carrying that around.
Oh, I'm not happy about it, but I'm not one of those people where I'll just turn heel and storm out and go, well, I'm not getting anything.
You're not getting my business.
Yeah, I'm just going to take my business somewhere else. I'm not.
Why do somebody who talks like that is like unfairly maligned by our terrible accent.
We malign West Texas people. Like it must be. I don't know what that accent is.
I don't know. Hey, I got West Texas family. Like we're not. Yeah. I got nothing against them.
None of them talk like that.
And none of them talk like that. That's a grovelly old stubborn like grandpa.
It's my voice. Yeah, we're going with it.
We'll be. I think one day we're gonna both like have joint pain and be sitting in a recliner talking to some snot-nosed grandkids like in that voice. We're gonna go, oh
it's
no,
the
manifested it.
It's the hey you kids get off my lawn voice. But anyway, so I'm not so brand loyal that I'm just gonna turn heel and leave if they don't have it, because I've traveled so far down this emotional path that I'm like, oh, I'm gonna get a Diet Coke, and you're already ready for it. You're like, oh shit, they don't have. All right, Pepsi. All right, whatever.
You've binged or you've pre-decided to because have cola more than Coke.
That's exactly right. Right, and I'm not gonna drink something else. I just that's what I want.
Yeah, I think that shows to me how replaceable everything is.
Well, it shows to me how sucked into this habit I am. I can't quit drinking Diet Cola.
Well, yeah, no, there was a time where you drank 12 Diet Cokes a day.
If I stopped, I think Coke stock would drop.
But
I have a problem.
But think about that. Think about how much more you prefer Coke over Pepsi.
Yeah, I don't know. It's
like
irrational.
It's
irrational.
It's not a contest. Like you wildly prefer Coke over Pepsi.
I do.
And you get like mad about it, which is funny. And so I think that you're like a lot of people in that respect.
Mm-hmm.
And there are probably plenty of other products and services that we might feel that way about, right? Where, oh, this is number one. There's no number two. Like I'm taking this.
Right.
But when you are no longer provided the option of number one,
right,
we'll go to number two.
I'll just change.
And I think every business owner could learn from that and go, you know what? No matter how much my customers like me, no matter how much my clients like me, I might be their clear number one.
Right.
But if I ain't around,
right,
number two will work.
I might be a Ford guy, but if Ford stops making pickup trucks, I'll buy a Chevy. I don't care. You're right. That kind of thing. Yeah.
So I'm more loyal to the product than the brand. 100%. No matter how much I think I'm loyal to that brand.
Right.
Nobody's loyal to your brand.
It's interesting.
Yeah. It's funny that you brought that in because today I talked with Jen Clinehens, our guest, about New Coke. I know you were not able to make it because mom had her wisdom teeth surgery today. So for everybody listening, well wishes to Mom Smith and her oral recovery. But today we talked with Jen Clinehens for the second time on our podcast. She is one of our favorite guests. She is a recognized authority in applied behavioral science, founder and managing director of marketing and product design firm choice hacking. She helps global businesses ethically apply behavioral science and psychology principles. She hosts the Choice Hacking podcast, the author of Choice Hacking: How to Use Behavioral Science and Psychology to Create an Experience That Sings, which was recently named one of the best behavioral psychology books of all time by Book Authority. And she is the author of a book that came out this year called How to Solve Impossible Problems, a guide to the thinking tools of CEOs, philosophers, inventors, and billionaires. I talked with Jen about reactance, the pain of payment, decisions made in a recession, the Gruen effect, the endowment effect, hyperbolic discounting, and confirmation bias. We talk about so many decision-making frameworks. Jen might know more about mental frameworks around decision-making than anyone I know. So you're going to learn so much. There's something you can take away from this conversation to make your life better and make better decisions, defeat bad decision-making in your own life. I'm Sanger Smith. As always, I'm with my dad, Sean Smith, and this is Decidedly. Hey, Jen.
Hello, Sanger. How are you?
I'm doing great. I don't know why I feel this way. I don't know where you stand politically. Doesn't really matter. You give me Tim Pool vibes.
Oh no, is that good?
I know it's not good or bad. It's not. I mean, I guess it's more good than bad. It really has nothing to do with Tim Pool. I couldn't explain it, and it doesn't make any sense at all. That's why I had to tell you.
Oh my God. All right. Well, I'll be honest. I haven't gotten that one before. That's a new one.
I knew I was going to tell you that, and I was looking because I was like, did I see some picture of Jen or a video or something with you in a beanie recently?
Oh yeah, that's probably it.
That was it.
Yeah,
that was it. You wore a beanie, and then you just can't escape Tim Pool in my head, in my stupid little brain.
I just Googled a picture of him. The first one that came up was him in a beanie. And I was like, oh yeah. No, I just, it's so funny. I got on TikTok and I've been taking TikTok more seriously. Obviously, when I came back, the first TikTok I put up went to like 5 million views. And nice. I had no makeup on. I thought at maximum 100 people are going to see this, and 5.2 million people saw it. I was like, oh my God.
Oh, hey, that's how it goes, right? You don't think anyone's going to pay attention. And that's when everyone pays attention. When you go out there and you decide, oh, I'm going to get a lot of views, I'm going to put a lot of effort into it. That's when nobody cares.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like, ooh, this one's going to go viral. And like 3 people watch it.
It's like they can read it on you. They're like, she was trying.
Yeah. Yeah. What's funny, that's the thing with TikTok. Yeah. They can smell when you've like overproduced it, or you're wearing like too much makeup, or you're too like slick, and they don't like it.
Yeah. I'm not, I don't put anything on TikTok. I do watch it. Right. Mm-hmm. And there's something, you know how you can see the views and the likes on the right side of the screen, right? What I noticed is that every now and then, you'll get on the like For You page, you'll get a suggestion for a video that has like 0 likes, 0 comments, nothing. And what I notice is that I always check like for social proof. I'm like, how many people like this? Like a few seconds in, once I'm deciding whether or not I like it or not, before I just scroll on, I'm like, I don't like this. And then I go look to see who's watched it. And that always happens. I'm like, I could smell it. Like it just felt like something that wasn't good.
Yeah.
Even
it's weird,
if it's highly produced.
Yeah. Nobody really wants to be the first one to like something. It's almost like, okay, we'll go back into the day. So before I was in marketing, I was a classical musician, and we used to take a string quartet out on the street in DC, like Arlington, and we play, fancy classical music. And what we noticed was we didn't really start getting tips, because you put the case out and you want people to throw money in it. Until we put money in there. You have to put dollars and change in the actual case so that people think, oh, well, somebody else liked it, so it's okay for me to like it too. Otherwise, you'll go hours and nobody will put any money in the case. This is like when I was like 15. So, but I learned that lesson early. So you need social proof.
Yeah, it's a weird thing. I don't know. I mean, makes sense, right? We don't want to be out on an island. We want to know that the choices that we've made, okay, these are rational, good choices that other people would make.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's cool. So you're doing TikTok.
Yeah, well, yeah. lately.
Okay. So what is different that you have to do, if anything, between creating Instagram content, creating YouTube content, and then now doing TikTok content?
Oh, what's different? I mean, it's interesting because I think it's a real art, like telling a story in 30 seconds or less. And I think for me, like specifically, I'm trying to kind of get across like really complex concepts. I'm trying to simplify them, but not too much. So to me,
Mm.
that's really what I had to learn is like, okay, if I'm going to tell like a little story, I'm going to talk a little bit about some psychology. What's enough to get people interested, but not too much to turn them off? And where, if I want to have like a deeper explanation with lots of examples and things, where do I talk about that? Is that a blog post or YouTube? So it's almost like, it's the difference between like an elevator pitch and a full presentation. And nobody wants to see the full presentation on TikTok. They want to see that
No.
like on YouTube or in a blog or in an email. And
Yeah.
so once I kind of got that straight, I was like, oh, okay, this all is kind of falling, it's coming together and making some sense. I am not like a TikTok master by any means, but I think it's just that. It's you have to like pique people's curiosity. You have to give them like a little nugget, but you can't tell them the whole story, which can be frustrating for me.
I bet it is frustrating when you have to shift from the YouTube mindset where you could put on, it's like nobody cares how long it is on YouTube.
Yeah.
There's people that'll watch, you can get a 1-minute video to succeed and you can get an hour-long video to succeed.
Yeah.
There's almost no rhyme or reason to it. On TikTok, I've seen a lot of creators will post, the multiple part videos, right? And people get frustrated in the comments. They're like, oh, come on, man, put it all in one part. Like, that's so annoying. But I started to kind of read into that a little bit more, and creators would respond and go, we have tried posting all in one part and y'all don't watch it.
They don't watch it. No.
So, sorry, but we're going to have to do it this way.
Well, it's interesting because, that concept of friction. So this idea is like I come up against a barrier. Like, you see this in lots of different areas. And sometimes I think marketers or whoever it might be, they all think that like friction is bad. Oh, we need a frictionless experience. But actually, a little bit of friction can sometimes really work in your favor with something like that. I mean, the friction comes from curiosity. They feel like a little psychological pain because their curiosity has not been like satisfied. And because they have to go to the next TikTok, it's like, oh, why would I do this? But then they've already gone to the next TikTok. So they're more likely to just sit there and watch it than...
And they're more likely to go to the next one. And they're more likely to go to the next one. I mean, I get frustrated by the multiple parts, but only if the next part isn't available to me. Yeah. Right?
Like I have to dig around and find it.
Yeah, where the creators really mess up is they post one and they're like, check in tomorrow for part 2. Man, screw you. I'm not showing up tomorrow. I'm not following up on this BS garbage content that probably isn't even providing value to me. It's just some story about what happened to you at Target last month.
Yeah.
No, give me the story right now. And so I'll go to the profile and be like, okay, where's part 2? Oh, it's not here. That's when we get mad. But when it's available, it could be 100 parts. And I'm like, if it's interesting, I keep going. And I think it's like a similar concept to in sales. You want to give someone the opportunity to say no, right? I learned that really early on in my career. Don't check in with people and have them say yes. Oh, does this make sense? Does that sound good? Do you want to go? You like this so far? Check in and give them the opportunity to say no. Right? Chris Voss talks about this in his book Never Split the Difference. Say, any reason that we shouldn't do this? No. Well, psychologically now I feel a little bit more comfortable because I know that I can say no to Jen. Right. And so maybe there's something there if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 parts. Well, I know at the end of this one part, which is only 20 seconds, I can say no. I can just move on. Jen's not asking me to stick around for 10 minutes. She's just giving me part 1. And if I want part 1, okay, that's fine. If I want part 27, I keep scrolling.
I'll keep doing it. Well, it's interesting because, there is this principle, the psychological principle, something called reactance, which basically says, it's different for different people, like any principle, right? Some people have it really bad. Some cultures have it I would say worse than other ones. And it's this idea, basically, if you tell me to do something, I'm not going to do it because you told me to do it, not because it's not a good thing for me to do. It's just,
Yeah.
well, you see it like in the 70s with the seatbelt laws or helmet laws, things like that. Everybody knows that wearing your seatbelt is good for you, right? You get into a car crash, it's unlikely, but if it happens, it's going to be good for you. But there'll be a certain percentage of people that say, no, I don't want to do that. And we don't have to go too far down the path of like the last couple of years, but if you look at sort of the way different cultures are they more individualistic or are they more collective? And in those more individualistic societies like the United States, people are more likely to have that bit of reactance because they feel like it's my decision, it's my choice, you can't just tell me what to do. So it's interesting, you're kind of saying that it's almost that, and then the idea of kind of continuously giving permission. It's like, oh, well, I'm letting you continue. I'm given a choice and I'm letting you continue. So I'm sort of like, I'm almost like co-creating it, right? I'm co-creating this decision that we're going down. I'm letting you continue.
It's
and
like
so
checking
then
in with the audience. You still interested?
Yeah.
It's like giving a speech on stage and every 45 seconds you want me to keep going?
Sure.
Y'all still listen?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. All right. And then keep going. The seatbelt is an interesting thing, how people just reject that. Like, no, I know it's safer, but not going to do it. I remember during the early on in the vaccine debate, people were kind of drawing analogies to the seatbelt laws and saying, showing videos of people reacting to the seatbelt laws. And it was funny. It's a lot of the same arguments. I think you could find humor in it regardless of where you stood on the vaccine debate. But people were, well, what's next now? They're going to ban, what's next? They're going to make us wear helmets.
Later.
It was pretty funny. I wasn't around for that debate, but I empathize with it. I probably would have said, no, now I don't want to. You're telling me
I never thought about it before.
Now I hadn't thought about it. In fact, I was wearing my seatbelt and now I don't want to wear my seatbelt. My grandfather, he's 78, 79, and he still won't wear a seatbelt. And these new cars, they've got for the past 20 years, new cars. For the past probably 20 years, if you don't buckle your seatbelt, what does it do? It dings at you, right? And this man will get in his car, buckle the seatbelt behind him.
Oh my gosh.
Just so it stops dinging.
Wow.
And my dad and I, we'd give him a hard time. We're like, Pop, it's more work. This is now more work for you to, get it all behind you.
Yeah.
You could just put it, it's actually designed to go over you. It's really easy process to put it in. He won't do it.
Well, there you go. Reactance.
Yeah. You have an amazing amount of content that you put out like on Instagram. I love following your Instagram because you tell these stories of these different companies making decisions all the time. And I'm like, Jesus, where did Jen even find this info half the time? But I saw something the other day on your page that I had heard about on the news, and that's these car companies charging, what do you call it, like subscription services just to keep the features of the car. What the heck is going on with that?
Yeah, so there was a little bit of a kerfuffle because BMW came out and basically said that they're not the first ones to do this. So, you can't like burn BMW too bad for doing this. And they're basically said,
on it.
I think deservedly so, to be honest with you.
Okay.
That's my personal opinion.
Okay.
But basically, you buy a BMW and you are given an option. You're given an option to pay for the entire like heated seat package up front, or you pay a subscription. So the idea is like, okay, well, they're probably thinking you could pay $2,000 when you buy the car, or it's $9.99 a month, or whatever it is, or $12.99 a month to keep the feature of the heated seats. Now, I think this is mistaken for a couple of reasons. I think number one, this is car companies trying to kind of keep up with each other, because obviously Tesla very famously has, you pay a subscription or you pay a fee to unlock like hyper mode and these different sort of like, oh, I can go faster in my Tesla, so I'm going to pay X amount of money.
Okay.
Toyota got in trouble a couple years ago because they did something similar to BMW with the push to start. So they're like, oh, you're going to have to pay $9.99 a month now to keep push to start. It's interesting in that, you know, it is literally, if you look at the numbers, it's basically 6 in one hand, half a dozen in the other, right? But what they're doing, I think, is very mistakenly pulling up something called the pain of payment. So there's this idea that there is a psychological pain every time you have to pay for something.
Mm-hmm.
And this is why things like, you know, Netflix set it and forget it, like, you know, unlimited coffee. And I know Panera had this for a while where you pay like $9.99 a month and you get all the coffee because you didn't have to go in and pay for it every time. But basically there's research that says, you know, the difference between paying in cash and paying with a card is pretty significant. If I pay with cash, it is a psychological pain because I see the numbers kind of disappearing in front of me. And some of this research says that if you pay with a card, you can spend 5%, 10%, 20% more because you don't feel that psychological pain of payment. I think where BMW is kind of mistaken here is they're pulling out a specific feature of the car and they're making you think about it, right? What I want as a luxury car owner is not to have to feel like I'm nickel and dimed. And interestingly, I'm writing an article about this now, looking at the way they sell hypercars. So if you look at the way, you know, these $3 million cars are sold, they're all inclusive. They do not nickel and dime you. They basically say it's $3 million for the car, pick whatever you want. That's how much it is. And there's not like a laundry list of things they have to go through.
Oh, and you're getting far more services.
Yeah.
Too.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
I'm sure they're coming out to your house and washing it and waxing it in your driveway for $3 million. You know, they're doing stuff that you're not getting even talked about or thought about it. A $75,000 or even $100,000 car.
Yeah, exactly. But I think the interesting idea here is it's like, well, you know, what do luxury car buyers want? And obviously there's a big difference between someone who's pushing like a $3 million McLaren or something versus somebody who's driving like even an $80,000 BMW, which is still a very expensive car in the big scheme of things.
It's a great car, yeah.
But, you know, the people who are buying that $80,000 car, they feel like they're buying a luxury experience. And when you have a luxury experience, you don't want to feel like you're thinking about every little penny that's going here and there. It's why, you know, if you look at psychological pricing techniques, if you look at a company like Louis Vuitton, so expensive handbags, you'll notice that they 99 times out of 100 price something with a zero on the end. It's never $1,600.99 because 99 denotes value. Like we have been trained to see 99 and think, oh, it's on sale. Oh, it's cheap. All of these luxury companies have a very good handle on how they should price things to make something feel luxurious, right? And a part of that is, you know, so not feeling like you're paying for every little thing.
If they put 99 cents on it, that works at Walmart, Target, that works, you know, on for $50 range items on Amazon. That's going to make me less likely to buy a Rolex. Because I go, oh, that's what I do when I'm saving money. I'm trying to blow money on this Burberry bag.
Yeah, totally.
Okay. Yeah, that makes all the sense in the world.
Yeah, it's interesting if you think about, so there is this principle of products basically sit on a spectrum. Okay, so on one side of the spectrum is something called utilitarian products. So like detergent, toothpaste, like a can of tomatoes, like whatever, something utilitarian. It's filling a need. Okay. On the other side of that spectrum are hedonic products, which are more like fun and they're treating myself. So that could be something like a luxury car, a watch, a bag, even a nice haircut, like something that isn't necessarily like have to have it, but I kind of want to have it. And the way that you treat and sort of talk about and price those two different kinds of products is very different. And that can even be true like with a single company, right? Like you can have one company that's selling things on a variety of places in that spectrum. But it's kind of like, you know, if you think about utilitarian as like McDonald's, when you go to McDonald's, you want to feel like you got a good deal. That's part of going to McDonald's. It's a value type of experience. But if you go to like Nobu, you don't want to feel like there's a dollar menu at Nobu. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like, well, I'm here for like a luxury experience. And therefore I do not want to see any of the signals of value that I might be looking for in a different context.
Okay. Is that, man, that's fascinating. Because obviously some people can't afford to even participate in that that psychological exercise, right?
Mhm.
They can't afford to let themselves go there, right? You know, there's some people, they go to Nobu, they're not going for the luxury experience. They're going to say, I don't like the fact that I can't see these prices.
Yeah.
Kind of sniff it out. But you're saying if you've kind of already chosen to be in that mindset of, hey, I'm here for a luxury experience,
Mhm.
then it's a takeaway. So are there companies that have tried to create a luxury experience by doing some of these tricks, but maybe they've misidentified, or they don't actually have a luxury product or created a luxury experience?
You know, I can think of one off the top of my head, which is McDonald's. And actually, McDonald's had, or might still have in some places, a line of burgers called the Signature Line. So Signature Line was intended to compete with like the Five Guys, the more, you know, and that's not luxury, is it? But it's compared to
Is it
McDonald's, it's a
nicer?
different
Yeah, nicer
experience.
than
It's
the quarter
nicer.
pounder.
Yeah, it's supposed to be something that's a little bit of an elevated product. And they did struggle with that product for quite a while because at the end of the day, like it was nice for McDonald's, but it was still McDonald's. And I
Yeah.
think, you know, and you have to look at all of this stuff in the context of the economy and, you know, how people are thinking about money, how they're feeling about money. And like, I'm not an economist, but I think one of the interesting things about being in a recession is there's more than one indicator for when you're in a recession. And one of the indicators
Yes.
is, does it feel like you're in a recession? You know what I mean? So it
Mhm.
doesn't really matter necessarily if you are, but
Yeah.
if you feel like you're about to be, or you feel like you're in one, or, you know, your friend down the street and all your neighbors just lost their job, you're going to be like less likely to kind of want to go to one of these value places and maybe get something that
Well,
feels like
and
a
that's
splurge.
why the government currently is trying so hard to convince us that we're not in a recession.
Yeah.
And regardless of how you feel about this administration, regardless of whether you personally think we're in a recession or not,
Yeah.
that's obviously where they're coming from. I had dinner
Mhm.
with an economist from NYU 3 years ago. And it was a table of me and some other advisors. We're sitting there just talking about current investment environment, and this is obviously pre-COVID recession. Everything's
Mhm.
going great, right? 2019, like we're in the longest running bull market of all
Mhm.
time. And he goes, because that was like late 2019 when everyone's starting to say, oh, 2020 is going to be a recession. 2020 is going to be a
Mhm.
recession. And all those experts were right for all the wrong reasons. He said to me, his name was Ed. He goes, what's a recession? He asked the table. A couple, pauses later, and because it was almost too easy of a question, somebody goes, 2 consecutive quarters of negative
Mhm.
GDP growth. Like, and we were all kind of like, what's the catch? He wouldn't be asking this question
Yeah. He's a
if
professor.
that was
He's
the
asking
answer.
his rhetorical
Yeah, like
question.
that's such an easy answer.
Yeah.
That it means it's not right.
Mhm.
And he waits, doesn't acknowledge, and then finally he goes, it's whatever the government says it is.
Mhm.
And I had never forgotten that. And then now it's like, that's all I can think about. And he goes, what if I told you we'd never be in a recession again? I go, what? And he took this position 3 years ago. I mean, clairvoyant. He goes, the government from now on will never, ever admit we're in a recession.
Hmm.
It will always be backward looking, because they know that if they say we're in a recession, that consumers will behave differently, because that's what a recession is once we all say we're in one.
Yeah.
And so a client asked me a couple of weeks ago, so are we really in a recession? You know, I'm hearing the Republicans are saying we're in one, the Democrats are saying we're not in one. And I said, they're both right. That's the crazy part of it, is that, yeah, technically, there is not a technical definition of a recession. It kind of just is based on whatever the expert economists say, whether we're in one or not, based on a ton of different factors. And also, the Republicans are correct, because there's a colloquial definition that is 2 negative consecutive quarters. And that was the definition that I learned. I remember hanging out with my dad in 2008 going, so what's all this talk about a recession? What does that mean? And he says, oh, it's 2 consecutive quarters of negative growth. Oh, okay. And that's the only definition I have ever heard anyone ever say. So they're both right. And it's causing so much of a problem because you've got one group of people saying we're not in one. This isn't, and self-interestedly saying we're not in one, and another group saying, well, we're in one, and by virtue of us saying we're in one, that kind of proves our point.
Yeah.
It kind of proves our point. And so, I think the fact that it's a debate almost guarantees that we are in a recession.
Yeah, because no one would be thinking, oh, we might be in one if we weren't in one. I mean, interestingly, like obviously for those people who didn't listen to the first one, so I live in the UK and we have a recession. The Bank of England came out and said, no, guys, it's definitely happening. So yeah, it's interesting. And then to see like the debate in the US where it's like, are we, aren't we? But it's interesting because the US is kind of going through like a mix of different things, like confusing things, like jobs are good and all sorts of stuff. Anyway, I didn't mean to take us necessarily down a recession rat hole, but I think it just really pulls to the fore that like a lot of the way that we behave is very much dictated by A, context, and B, psychology. Like how are we thinking about something? How are we talking about something? How is something presented to us? And like most things, most people don't either realize kind of what's realize what's going on around them. So like a fish asking how's the water and somebody says what's water, that kind of issue. I think it's this other question of, well, if context is such a big decider on what I'm choosing to do or not to do, then how do I know when I'm being influenced, right? Like where it's how do I look for the signs that somebody might be manipulating me? Which I think is a really interesting question because like on my YouTube channel and on my, or my blog and podcasts and things, I do sort of unpack these ideas of, there's these companies out there that are using psychological principles. Some of them know what they're doing and some of them don't. Some of them just know something is working and they don't necessarily know why, or, it's not like a specific psychological, like strategy that they have. But with something like the Gruen effect. So I think the Gruen effect is a really interesting one where it's basically, so the story goes, there was a Austrian architect named Victor Gruen. He came to the US in the 50s. And, he came from Austria where they had like a lot of public squares and like really nice communal spaces. Because obviously in Europe, it wasn't built around the car. And he came to the suburban post-war US and looked around at a place that was designed for people who had cars. And he was like, there's no social spaces for people. So I want to create one of those because I'm an architect and that's my job. So he creates what eventually becomes the mall. Interestingly, the people that hired him to create the first, what we would call a mall, are the Dayton Corporation, which become Target. So Target does use the Gruen effect, whether they know it or not. And basically what the Gruen effect is, Gruen builds this amazing mall and he thinks this is it. Everyone's going to have this great social experience and, the car, we've overcome it. But actually what he found is he would observe people walking into the mall with all these like sights and smells and sounds. It's very overwhelming. And he noticed that when people would come in, they would be overwhelmed by all the stimulus and they would start spending more money than they had originally planned. They would buy things that weren't on the list and they were really just like enjoying the experience. But the mall was designed in such a way that it kind of changed their mood. It changed their mindset. And it put them more into a like enjoying the moment, not thinking about the consequences, buying really more stuff than I should. And you can see sort of the legacy of the Gruen effect in places like Target or other retailers where you walk in and there's a coffee shop, or there's like a little like in Target it's Bullseye's Playground, but these little like budget spots where you can get something for $1. And it's like, oh, I just walked in and already I'm distracted. Already I'm off the list.
Yeah.
Now, are they sitting down and saying like, oh my God, we need to manipulate customers so that they completely forgot what was on their list as soon as they come in? No, they're probably going like, oh, it'd be nice for people to have coffee. And the budget stuff should probably sit up here so everybody can see it when they walk in. But the actual effect is they do sell more, probably because of this Gruen effect, which interestingly, Victor Gruen tried to then distance himself from for the rest of his career. They named it the Gruen effect and he was like, whoa.
Oh, really? Why did he not want to be a part of it?
He felt like it was manipulative. But like a lot of, retailers, he didn't set out to be manipulating people. He just thought this is too much. I'm changing, people's moods and their mindsets too much when they come into the mall or a store or whatever it might be. So, I mean, that's
Yeah.
one of those things where I always tell people, I always try to be mindful of it myself because, you know, you teach, but do you really know? And it's like, if you're walking into a retail experience and your emotions change, like you get an emotional response. Like I get an emotional response when I walk into Sephora. There's
Yeah.
no Sephoras in the UK. I went to Barcelona with a client to do a client workshop a couple of months ago. I walked into a Sephora because they lost my luggage, BA. That's a whole nother story. I walked into Sephora and I literally was like, oh, I feel relaxed. I feel like there's air conditioning in here and everything smells nice and it looks so good. And I was just supposed to be like getting the budget makeup to replace all the stuff that BA had lost. Like they lost everybody's luggage for the last like 3 months. And instead, I ended up spending €300 on makeup that I probably didn't need. I definitely didn't need it. Like,
Definitely didn't. No, 100% didn't need.
No, but I was like, oh, but you know, I like this blush. It's a little bit better. And you know, there's no Sephora's where I am. And I just,
Yeah.
and I start like making excuses.
You got to justify it. Yeah. It's so easy to, oh, well, I can pick here's why. And you know what? Honestly, like I worked really hard this week.
Yeah.
And there's so many things we can do to justify it. Yeah.
They lost my luggage. I don't have any clothes. This is terrible.
Yes.
You know? But,
yes.
But at the end of the day, it's
storm.
because, they've got a retail experience that it does trigger like an emotional response, and not in everybody. I mean, you probably would walk into a Sephora and be like, "This is boring.
Care.
I gotta go." Yeah, I don't. None of this is working on me. But you know, for other people like me, I'm like, oh, this is really like, you know, taking over my mind. But I think that's always the thing to look out for. It's like, you know, on one hand, when you shop, when you have like a retail experience, even online, even digital experiences, you want to kind of feel something. You know, a lot of times people shop because they're bored. They want to try something new. They want to do something different.
I will consciously pay more to have a good experience while I'm shopping. I don't like grocery shopping. I do not like it. I rarely feel as if I have the time for it. You know, I work a lot. The last thing I want to do is go, you know, walk around, you know, a dull, sterile, like all white Walmart that's got people running around and kids screaming, and
it's got that Walmart smell.
I'm looking for
Walmart has the Walmart smell.
Yeah, and just
it's not bad. It just smells like Walmart.
Exactly. It's like, man, I got a few free moments, and I've unfortunately got to spend it doing a chore. The last thing I want to do is have that chore be stressful. So I go to Central Market, and Central Market, it's kind of almost like a Whole Foods type thing owned by H-E-B. I don't know if they exist outside of Texas.
I don't even know if H-E-B exists outside of Texas, actually.
H-E-B might not even exist outside of Texas, but
I've never seen it anywhere else.
The best way I could describe it, if you've never been to a Central Market, is take Whole Foods approach to healthy, unique options, you know, not something you're going to find at a Walmart or a Target. Very high quality produce, very high quality fresh meats, and, you know, organic pasture raised eggs and all that really great stuff, and take it up a notch from there, and a wonderful like layout, wonderful experience. They focus way more than Whole Foods, in my opinion, on creating an excellent experience in the store. The Whole Foods CEO even because they started in Austin, even credited Central Market, said they were our biggest competitor early on. Might not be anymore because Whole Foods is, you know, more national. But having said that, oh my gosh, I go in there and it's just the way that they have the lighting and the way that like they put all the fruit, and it just makes the area where the fruit is so colorful, and it just feels so full of life. I'm like, I could go in there just to get an apple and a banana, and I'm probably paying triple what I would at Walmart. And I do not care. I'm like, I'm just thankful. I'm like, at least I get to be at Central Market.
Yeah. No, it's really like the experience makes such a difference. And I think, I mean, that's something you see with, on the other side of the spectrum, someplace like Aldi. So like Aldi is almost, I mean, you know, deliberately is on the other scale of that, right? Like they're very simple. It's all store brand. But that's because their whole reason to be is for people to save money. So they've set up the experience in such a way that like they cut all the corners. But if you think about something like a Whole Foods, or even, you know, like a Trader Joe's, right? Like they want it to be a pleasant experience because they know if it's pleasant, you will spend more time there. You'll put more things in the basket. And really, once you get something in the basket, like it's all over. Because then endowment effect kicks in and you start to sort of like imagine, oh, yes, I really need these, whatever, like fancy almond milk. I need the fancy almond milk.
Endowment effect?
Yes, the endowment effect basically says that like owning something or the intention to own something makes us less willing to give it up. So a good example, like IKEA effect is a type of endowment effect. So, I co-create something. I put this furniture together from IKEA, and in the experiment, they put it up in auction, and the people that had built the furniture rather than just being given the fully assembled furniture, they wanted it to go for more. They bid more for it. They felt like it was worth more. Another example might be, if you think about if you've ever lived in a house for a couple of years, 5 years, 6 years, and then it's time to sell the house. Real estate agents come up against this all the time. You think, oh, this house must be worth $500,000. And they go, well, no, like slow down. It's just closer to like 425. And you think, well, no, it can't be because I've lived here and I'm bonded with this. My kids grew up here. You have an emotional attachment to it. You don't want to give it up. You feel like it's worth more than it is. So endowment effect, like there's a lot of different ways it can happen. Even in the digital sphere, they find that when you shop on an iPad or a phone and you swipe a product, you're touching a product. So, I'm not even like grabbing it and putting it in the cart. That makes me bonded to it. That makes it more likely that I'm actually going to buy something because I'm interacting with it, I'm touching it. Even things like haptic imagery. So haptic imagery, basically, if you have, like, this is a little remote control for my lights, but like, you see something with like a phone in someone's hand in an ad. That's haptic imagery. That makes you bond to it a little bit more than if they just showed the phone because you see someone touching it. You see someone like owning it.
Okay. You can kind of put yourself in that. Yeah. In that, you can kind of associate how this product relates to you and go, oh, I can imagine myself holding that. Okay.
Exactly. Well, subconsciously, this is kind of happening.
Sure. And yeah. You're not thinking.
No, you're not thinking into it. Yeah. But the same thing would happen.
What a nice family enjoying this. Their freshly clean Tide laundry detergent. Yeah. No one's thinking that out loud.
Yeah. No. I think the other thing to think about too is like putting things in a cart. So IKEA, I talk about this a little bit. How IKEA basically has one floor plan, and they've got some like urban IKEAs that are a little bit smaller, but essentially you go out to this place, you drive out into like wherever it is outside of the city where you live in the suburbs someplace. And it's a huge box that has a one-way system, has a track system, right? You come in and you walk and you walk and you walk and you walk and you walk, you go up the stairs and you walk some more. And then you go up and before you know it, like you just have spent so much time in there. And because it's so big, I see a lamp and I think, oh, that's a really cute lamp. I don't know how I feel about that lamp. I kind of need to think about it. IKEA is huge. And I think it's something like, it's like 3 football fields to walk or something. It's crazy. So you say, oh, well, I'll put it in the cart just for a minute. I'll just think about it. If you notice, like in the grocery store, you'll see places where people have taken something out of their cart and just stick it up on a shelf, Walmart, like wherever it might be. You don't really see that as much in IKEA because no one is going to go back and put it away. And they have it in the cart for so long. Some of the research has said that, people have started to, some of the research has done with things like concert tickets or like UNC basketball tickets, things like that. But this idea that you're creating pre-memories, like, oh, that lamp is going to look really nice in my office. I'm going to put it next to this thing.
Okay.
And then, you're kind of becoming bonded to it.
Envision it. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that makes so much sense. I don't think it was you. Maybe it was you. Somebody shared with me on the podcast that you get when you're online shopping, you get all of the same endorphins when you put an item in the cart as you do when you actually purchase it. So if you put it in the cart and then just clear it out of the cart, you're in the same place emotionally.
I think that was me because I do that.
All right. Okay.
It might not have been me, but I do it.
Well, then you're getting the credit because I do that now, right? And so my rule is like I can't use the buy now button.
Yeah.
I can't use the buy now button. I'll put something in the cart and then I'll just forget about it. And the amount of stuff that I haven't bought is through the roof. I mean, the
Yeah.
amount of times that I go,
Oh.
I can't discipline at IKEA. I'm just like everyone else. At Central
Mhm.
Market, I'm just like everyone else. I'm just gonna fall for all the traps. I'm gonna buy the stuff, and that's why I hate going. So online shopping, for whatever reason, I don't know why, I have, at least by my standards, successfully avoid overspending. And I'll say, you know what? I don't need that. I'll put it in the cart.
Mm.
I'm not going to save my card info into
Yeah.
it. Would you like to
I
save
never
your
do
card
that.
info for easier
Never.
purchases in the future?
No.
No, that sounds horrible. I don't
Yeah.
trust future me.
Yeah.
I'm not doing that.
Exactly. I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? It's like putting in, we talked about friction earlier. The more friction you can put into a process, like don't have Google save or Apple save your card numbers, and take
Yeah.
your card and put it like up the stairs. So now it's like, oh, I'm
Yeah.
sitting on my computer and I think this is really cute, and I'm going to put in the cart. Oh no, I have to go get my card. Forget it. You know what I mean? It's like these little moments of friction.
That
Yeah.
alone, it just saves me all the time.
Yeah,
So,
definitely.
oh, my wallet's over there. I'll do that later. I'll do that
Yeah.
later. Yeah, like I'm ever going to sit around and think, oh, on the list of things I got to do is go buy that running shirt that I saw on Amazon or whatever it was. No, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm safe now. I'm out of the weeds. I'm out of the clutches of Amazon, and they're not getting more money out of me.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I mean, I think that, that buy it now and obviously Prime are two of the things that Amazon have done that have really helped them grow. Because if you'll remember, I mean, that one-click ordering, like, I don't know if they were the very first to do it, but they were the first to do it on scale, right? So, you had this whole, huge like selection that you could just say, oh, I want it now. I want it now. I want it now. I want it now. There's a really good comedian.
And it's like magic. It just, they do same day delivery now.
Oh yeah.
I learned that like a couple of weeks ago. I needed some laundry detergent or something. It was there that evening.
Yeah.
What that's sorcery. That almost shouldn't be. I almost don't. It's almost too good for me to like it. I'm like, I don't know how I feel about the fact that I can just push a button and the things I need just show up, and I don't feel any sort of pain for paying for it.
It's just there magically.
Yeah, like I think we need our lives to be a little bit more difficult than that.
I mean, this is where it comes into, like, oh, I want to get a little control over how I spend, how I feel like these principles are maybe having an effect on me. And I think that's really it, is making things more inconvenient for yourself.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, the convenience is great, but the problem is with that much convenience is it lets your impulses rule. So if you ever know
Sephora blush on the buy now button.
Oh yeah.
every Sunday night.
Yeah, totally. And, it's like there's a parable sort of, or like a metaphor around the way that our minds work. So there's basically two parts. I mean, this is just a framework, so it's not literally true, but there's the rational side of our minds and the way we think, and there's the emotional side. And there's this metaphor that basically says it's like a rider and an elephant. Okay, so the elephant is our emotions, the emotional side of our minds, and the rational side is the rider. And the rider can, is under an illusion of control. They're like, ooh, go left, and the giant elephant goes left. But if the elephant sees something it wants, that rider's not going to stop it. Like, it's no stopping it. It's an elephant. It's huge, and you're just a tiny little rider. So this is the thing. It's like once your emotions start to come into play, if you have the ability, to be buying whatever is sort of, capturing your attention and your emotions at that moment, your emotions are going to go like, yeah, let's go over there. Ooh, that's great. Sure. Buy it now.
Yeah.
Why not? I think it's cute and it's on sale. Okay, I'll do it. Whereas your rational mind might be saying things like, we need to, be investing or paying the power bill, whatever it might be, and we all have those tendencies. I mean, it's not exclusive to any like, education level or where you grow up or anything
about it. I mean, that's, I think it's good to talk about how we all fall for these things. We all have made decisions purely based on our emotions that we wish we didn't. Some with not so big consequences, some with really big consequences. But I mean, even the most disciplined, put together person deals with these very human issues. The difference between the people who seem to have it together and the people who don't are how aware they are of that elephant.
Mhm.
You know, I think it's just knowing the elephant, seeing the elephant, looking at the elephant, going, "Yep, that's a big elephant, and
Mhm.
I am going to admit that I cannot control that. So what
Mhm.
can I do ahead of time before that elephant gets pissed off or gets really excited or really hungry or
Mhm.
whatever it is?
Mhm.
What can I do to keep that elephant chilled out?"
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, it kind of reminds me like the way that you're talking about it. There's this principle called hyperbolic discounting, which basically says like we value things that we do now over things that we would get a benefit from later. So the example I always use is if you've ever made a plan to go running early in the morning, right?
Mm,
It's like 8 o'clock at night. You're like, yes, I'm going to get up at 5 a.m. and I'm going to run and it's going to be great. Or I'm going to go to the gym. And then the alarm goes off at like 4:30 and you're like, not a chance. No
yeah,
way. I'm going back to bed because your emotions kind of take over because
yeah,
to you, it's not a choice between like being fit and going back to sleep. It's a choice between just like that thing right in front of you. It's being uncomfortable or being comfortable. And you're not thinking about the long-term consequences of, hitting the alarm every single morning. You're just thinking, oh,
hmm
well, what's right in front of me is warm bed or cold outside and running and feeling terrible.
and
Um,
sweating and
or,
breathing
like
heavy.
pick your
Yeah,
poison, like whatever it might be. Oh yeah, exactly. And this is one of the things, or one of the good situations where like mental rehearsal comes in really handy. So for something like hyperbolic discounting, a lot of times, because you're in like a weakened emotional state early in the morning,
hmm
just a small little bump in the road, a small piece of friction can really derail everything. Oh, I can't find my shoes. Oh, forget it. It's 5 o'clock in the morning. I'm going back to bed. But if you do mental rehearsal and you say like, okay, well, I'm going to wake up in the morning and I know I'm not going to feel like doing this. What's one way I can kind of already be invested in doing it? So like, for example, if I have to work out, early in the morning, I sleep in my gym clothes because it's
yeah,
like one less thing I have to do. It's
yes,
one less hurdle. You charge up your headphones the night before, like you create a plan. And if you go through the mental rehearsal of here's all the things I have to do, here's where the
yeah.
little frustrations are that keep me from prioritizing long-term benefits, that makes it
Remove
a little bit
any of the
easier to kind of get out
reason,
the
yeah,
door.
remove any of the
Mm,
reasons that sleepy, grumpy me can
yeah.
talk myself out of doing this.
Yeah.
Well, my watch is already on my wrist and fully
Yeah.
charged. My shoes are right by the door at the edge of my bed. My gym clothes
Hmm.
are already on. I got no reason to not go other than I want to stay in this warm bed. And then you're kind
Yeah.
of silly, if you
Yeah.
sleep in your gym clothes.
Yeah.
You're
You're
like,
like, I'm already halfway there.
what have I done this for?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, whenever I was training for an Ironman, I had to do that. I mean,
Yeah.
I couldn't skip my morning workout because I also had an afternoon workout.
Yeah.
So it was like, man, I gotta do it.
Can't do it
And
later.
I never once wanted to do it. I
Hmm.
never once woke up every morning and I thought eventually, like, okay, I'm going to eventually get used to this and I'll learn to like it.
Mm.
Hell no. It was
No.
awful every time. It
Yeah.
was how many things can I do to make this easier for me?
Hmm.
Okay, so I'm going to make the process of waking up uncomfortable
Hmm.
already. Like or the process of staying in bed uncomfortable. I have like a alarm clock that's super loud that's on the other side of the room. Okay.
Hmm.
The light on my other alarm clock automatically turns on. So now my room is bright and blaring, wah, 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 and I have to get up out of bed to turn those off. Am I going to get back in? Oh, well, I've already got my gym clothes on. Oh, I had to
Yeah.
step
Yada
over my
yada.
running shoes. Yeah, all those things.
Yeah.
Um, you were talking earlier, Jen, about the luxury pricing.
Mm.
And I want to go back to that for a second because I have a lot of friends who are business owners who, um, want to move up market, so to speak, with their product or service. And the challenge that they have is I may want to move up market, but my consumers, my existing clients, my existing customers may or may not view me in that light
Hmm.
right now. So if I go too fast, I could lose existing clients, existing customers. And if I go too slow, if I base all of my decisions on what's going to make my current consumer base happy, then I'm never going to get there.
Hmm.
So what lessons can we learn from companies that have maybe done that really well or done that really poorly?
Yeah, it's a good question because I mean, in a way, it's almost a brand strategy question as much as a psychology question, isn't it? It's how
Yeah.
far, well, you can use an economic term, right? Like how price elastic are my customers? Like how long are they going to stick around? If
Yeah.
like if I'm a McDonald's and all of a sudden I'm charging $12 for a
Yeah.
hamburger, probably not. They're not that elastic with that particular brand. If you look at something like the way that automakers structure things, they've got usually like a budget, a luxury, and then even within the luxury, they've got usually got like a super luxury tier. Um,
Yeah.
at some point, you can't stretch customer perceptions beyond a certain point, right? So, and it's much easier,
Yeah.
really.
McDonald's is never, ever, ever going to be a luxury brand.
No, no, and that's okay because
Yeah,
that's
fine.
that's what makes
Yeah.
McDonald's McDonald's, and not it's the same thing with something like Walmart, right? Like the Walmart customer is, they might overlap a little bit with the Whole Foods customer, but you're never like going to be in parity. That's never going to be the same customer, and that's okay. That's each different area of the market has different people they need to serve. But if, for example, Walmart decided to open like, I don't know, we have Sam's Club already, like, I don't know, Walton Mart or something, where it's a
Yeah.
little bit more fancy, it's a little bit more up in the next kind of tier of spending. That's much easier to believe than all of a sudden
Mm,
Walmart is going to be selling
yeah.
$10,000 watches.
Yeah.
You
We're going
know?
to associate that brand. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. What can small business owners do who might not, and I know this is a big question, right? The real answer is completely individualized. We a lot of business owners, they're in this place where they know, hey man, I've got to adapt. I've got to adapt. I can't stay exactly where I am, but maybe I don't have the bandwidth, the resources to just go out and create a whole new brand, whole new Walton Mart, right? At the same time, I can't hire Qualtrics for $250,000 a year to figure out the elasticity of my
Yeah.
product demand. And, a lot of us we're just guessing. We're going, okay, well, people are buying it right now. I think 30% price increase, spend, 50 grand on marketing, and, get a new logo, make it look a little bit nicer and sleeker. And I think we're good. We're winging it.
I mean, everybody's winging it.
Yeah.
The professor at NYU is winging it to a certain extent. Like business is built on assumptions. But this is what I would say is, I mean, if you, look at the research or, look at someone who's like digesting and translating the research, somebody who is what I do, and, see what you can learn and experiment and know that, this is the thing, isn't it? It's really difficult to get people to change. Right? If they expect a certain thing from you, they're used to a certain experience. Unless they're getting much more value for like the same amount of money, it's very difficult to get them to do something else.
Yeah.
And I think at the end of the day, it's like what you're saying. It's you've got to, and I think a lot of marketers would say ask people. I am more of a behavioral marketer. And I think part of the problem with asking people, hey, would you buy this? I mean, I just posted yesterday about, Colgate toothpaste decided to do a brand extension in the 80s because frozen food was just getting sold like hotcakes. Everybody wanted frozen food. So Colgate came out with beef lasagna. Colgate. It's like Colgate beef lasagna. Now, Colgate is a big company, Colgate Palmolive. You cannot tell me that they didn't spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on research. And they talked to people and they said, would you buy this beef lasagna? And those people are probably like, yeah, sure. But the problem is, people will say one thing and do something else. That's a problem in marketing. That's a problem in life. It's a problem in relationships. This is the whole thing, because people don't really know what's motivating them. They just know what they're going to respond to. So I guess it's not really answering your question because you're right. I think it does depend on the product, the market, who they're going after, how much they're trying to like extend the brand, what the products might look like, where do they have authority now? How do customers trust them? All of that kind of stuff. But they really just need to think about the psychological side of that as well as things like brand architecture, right? So if I walked into a store that I like an Aldi, like, you trust Aldi to have something that's really low price. When you're watching your budget, you walk into Aldi and that's where you buy your staples. Now, if I walked into Aldi and all of a sudden they still had my staples, but they had like a row in the middle that had, I don't know, like steaks that cost $50.
Yeah.
How am I going to feel about all the budget stuff? It's going to affect the existing product perception too. Am I going to think all of a sudden, well, if they can afford to sell this, they're selling $200 bottles of champagne in the middle of Aldi, are they really giving me the best price they can on all of this cheaper stuff? So that's the other thing. It's like when you stretch in one direction, you kind of stretch away from the other direction too. So it's thinking about the psychological implications. Another good example of a company trying to do something and not doing it very successfully, even though they talk to literally hundreds of thousands, I believe, of customers. They definitely spent millions of dollars on research, is New Coke. So if anyone, I don't really remember New Coke because I'm so young, but no, you know, I was alive for New Coke.
I have heard this story plenty of times. My dad would use this as a wonderful lesson when I was younger about
a life lesson.
A life lesson about how royally you can screw up
totally
by changing things.
Yeah. So if anyone watches Stranger Things, if you're not like, they have New Coke in Stranger Things, right? So it's like a thing in the 80s. You basically had Coke. And I mean, there's a whole history of Coke, especially in post-war America. You know, they sent it out to like the troops and everything. It was really a part of like the American culture, Coca-Cola.
Mm-hmm.
And in, I think, the early 60s, you know, you had Pepsi, and Pepsi was gaining all of this market share. And, you know, Coke basically went from being really dominant in the soda space, like owning basically all of it, to fast forward to the 80s. All of a sudden they're down, you know, to like small double digits in terms of market share. And Pepsi's just dominating everything. A big part of that was...
Wait, well, I didn't know that. So there was a point in time where Pepsi was even outselling Coke?
Yeah, that Coke was really getting beat up. Wow. And part of that was this marketing campaign called the Pepsi Challenge. So they would go out.
Yes, I've heard this.
Yeah, they would go out to like a mall or something, and they would do a blind taste test. And people say, okay, try this one. Now try this one. Which one do you like? And overwhelmingly, people chose Pepsi. And this is the Pepsi paradox, actually. So this is an interesting sort of effect that if you do something like that, a blind taste test, people almost always pick Pepsi because it's sweeter. And people are like, oh, a little, and they have a little sip, you know, they're not drinking a whole can. They're like, oh, this is much better.
Yeah, yeah.
If you ask them, which one do you like, Coke or Pepsi? They're much more likely to say Coca-Cola because of the brand and the implication. And there's a lot of other kind of like psychological things happening.
Drinking a full can of Coke is a different experience than taking a sip of Coke.
Exactly. So, you know, there's a little flaw there, but regardless, you know, they're having the Pepsi challenge, and Pepsi is basically saying, oh, we're for a new generation. Coke is for old people. Forget it.
Coke didn't believe them, and they replicated the study and went, damn it.
It happened.
They are beating us here.
Yes. And so, you know, it was one of those things where did you see The Last Dance with Michael Jordan? And he says,
yes, of course. We watched that as a family, by the way.
Yeah. Well, there's those moments where something happens and he goes, and I took that personal. That's what Coke did.
Yeah,
they took that personal. And they were like, oh man, you know, we've got to do something. So they launched a thing called Project Kansas. And Project Kansas was a secret project to create a product that was sweeter, but that was based on the Coke recipe. So basically a sweeter version of Coke. And
knock off Pepsi.
Well, sort of. It was, you know, Coke, like basically a sweeter version of Coke. So it wasn't knockoff Pepsi necessarily. But, you know, the CEO at the time, or the president at the time, was Roberto Goizueta. I went to Goizueta Business School in Atlanta.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Yes, Roberto Goizueta. There you go. And he had done something similar, actually. So he had run Coca-Cola's operations in the Bahamas, and it worked. He tweaked the formula, made it a little bit sweeter, because they had, you know, some leverage with the bottlers and stuff, and they could do that. Tweaked it, made it sweeter, and the sales went way up. So he thought, oh, this is like no lose. We got to do this. We're losing market share. We're losing it to a sweeter product, but we're Coca-Cola. So rather than just have like a new product, why don't we just replace Coke? We'll just make Coke sweeter. And that was a mistake. Basically, you know, you had protests and all sorts of things. But they did do an extensive amount of market research. They did taste tests. They asked people. People really liked it. Now, it's worth saying that when they did all of that research, there was a small group of people who got angry, and they were like, are you going to replace Coke? You can't do that. But they ignored those people because of confirmation bias. They just had this charge from the president, the CEO, I think for some good reasons. And it was a good product that people really liked. But you get it out into the world, And all of a sudden it's like, oh, you're replacing this thing that is a part of my childhood, that's a part of Americana.
Yeah,
it's different.
It's like
Don't
you can't completely, no matter how much you spend on studies and focus groups, you can't truly replicate and simulate the reality of what you're proposing ever, no matter what it is, right?
You
Whether
just
it's
got to do it.
political. Hey, you know, how does this one-liner sound in a speech? Okay, you like that phrasing? Well, now I'm actually watching you on TV saying that to a crowd of people. Doesn't sound as good. You know, now
No.
that's in the reality that we live in. I don't like it as much.
Yeah.
New Coke. Okay, yeah, it tastes good while we're here. Would you like this to replace original Coke? Sure, you know.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I'm not,
Why not?
but I don't actually in that moment think about the time when I go to 7-Eleven and I want nothing more than a Coke because I've been sweating my butt off doing yard work in 100-degree Texas heat, and I go, and you don't have original Coke anymore? And now I'm mad.
New Coke. What is this?
Yeah, you can't recreate in the minds of the consumer the reality of this change that you're talking about.
Right. And the other interesting thing about the New Coke story is, you know, they were all kind of queued up for big success and everything. And they had a press conference on what later became known as Black Tuesday, because the press conference didn't go very well because Pepsi heard before they announced it that this was happening, right? You know how like business, they just kind of hear things through the grapevine. And so they had the same, you know, instinct that they thought a lot of the customers would have of Coke. Like, how dare you change this? This is terrible. So they prepped a bunch of the reporters with questions like, how do you know this isn't going to bomb? How do you know people aren't going to hate this? So Pepsi, you know, and like there's a whole history of this.
Them.
Oh yeah. It's the Cola Wars. They called it the Cola Wars for a reason.
Okay.
And they that's interesting to me that they recognized the psychological reaction that people were going to have, and they just sort of like amped it up a little bit. And pretty soon you've got protests and they're writing letters to, you know, sending them to the headquarters in Atlanta. But yeah, I mean, sometimes you're just so in the weeds in your own business and, you know, you're making assumptions and you're kind of telling yourself a story that you start to believe is true. Then you start to ignore evidence that might, you know, lead you in a different direction. And before you know it, you've talked yourself into something that isn't necessarily like in the customer's best interest, or in the case of New Coke, most of the customers said, oh yeah, I'd really prefer this. But the psychological side of that change was never really considered or thought through.
Man, that's fascinating. And how long was it before they reversed that?
Oh, it's a good question. I know they basically took a bath.
Was really, like, in the grand scheme of things, really short, right?
Yeah, I think it was less than a year, but I wouldn't quote me on that. I do know that, you know, like part of the reason they came out with New Coke, like obviously you've got all these confounding factors with, you know, Gruen, who's very, very smart guy. I mean, he really saved Coke. He made one big mistake, but he did a lot of really good things as well. You've got Gruen and his experience. You've got all of this focus group data. Yeah. And you've got the bottlers. The bottlers actually threatened to sue Coke. Because if you're familiar at all with the way like Pepsi and Coke are set up, you've got like the bottlers are basically separate from the brand and all this stuff.
Yeah, it's a totally different company, and they have this contract with the bottlers to...
It's a whole thing.
Yeah, the bottlers, like, they get to claim some sort of, like, brand image, like, damages and stuff. I'm not a lawyer, right? But, you know, Double and Dr. Pepper. Mm-hmm. Okay, so Double and Dr. Pepper, I don't know how popular it is outside of Texas, but we love Dr. Pepper's kind of like a religious symbol in Texas. Like you have to kind of say that you like Dr. Pepper, and it doesn't matter if Coke is your preferred beverage.
No, I see.
You have to say that Dr. Pepper is your favorite.
Yeah.
To be a true Texan. So Dr. Pepper's my favorite. I will go order Coke for dinner. But they had Double and Dr. Pepper, which was in the town of Dublin, which is a tiny little town in kind of north central Texas. I don't know, like 100 people live there. Our producer Morgan, she like drives out there to get her organic eggs and milk. And there's really nothing there other than, I guess, some farms and this old bottling place that used to make the Dublin Dr. Pepper. So they had, for years, they had made regular Dr. Pepper and then Double and Dr. Pepper. I don't know how that started, but I know that the Double and Dr. Pepper was always everyone's favorite. If you had ever had double and Dr. Pepper, you're like, oh my gosh, this is so much better because they use real sugar, and they just maybe they tweaked like a couple of other things, but you can't get it anymore.
Oh,
you cannot get it anymore, and the reason is because the distributor or the bottling company that does the other Dr. Pepper, the regular Dr. Pepper that you're going to get at the grocery store, sued Dublin Dr. Pepper. So it wasn't, people were like mad at Dr. Pepper, and they go, no, Dr. Pepper, what are you doing? You're so stupid. And then they find out, oh, the Dublin distributor goes, oh, they're putting us out of business. They're telling us we can't sell it. And everyone goes, oh, well, that must mean Dr. Pepper is saying that you can't do this anymore. No, it wasn't even Dr. Pepper. It was the bottler. Yeah. So I don't know what kind of sort of like bottle law issues there are going on.
It's really complicated. Yeah, it's its own world, really. But yeah,
like they have exactly the rights to the product, and they can say that we bottle. I don't know.
Yes. So they had something similar, basically. So like the Coke bottlers got wind of how well new Coke was testing, and they said, we will sue Coke corporate if you don't release new Coke. And so there was a lot of pressure coming from a lot of different places. So that's why I think new Coke is probably one of the most misunderstood marketing disasters, because the product was really good, but the marketing and they had some things stacked against them, obviously, with the like loading up the reporters with loaded questions and things. But it was a great product. It really was. And people are like, oh, new Coke's terrible. No, new Coke's great. They just really mishandled the way that customers were going to perceive a change to classic Coke.
Well, it tells you how bad they messed up, because by the fact that you can't get it anymore. It's not like they said, oh, we'll bring original back. They said, we're killing new Coke.
Yeah.
And we're bringing original back.
It was a long time until they actually fully killed new Coke, though. So like Goizueta famously drank new Coke until like the day he died.
Really?
Like, yeah.
Not gonna give up on it.
He was like, I'm not giving up. I think he said new Coke or no Coke. That was like his rallying cry. New Coke or no Coke. And I don't know if you've ever worked in a big sort of like corporate atmosphere, but sometimes those things you're like privately, you're like, I don't know about this new Coke thing, but you got to go to work.
But you got to like rally the troops. Coke. Yeah. You can't get egg on your face in front of 10,000 employees. Yeah.
You can't disagree with the boss.
Oh man, that's hilarious. No, I had never heard that in-depth kind of breakdown of new Coke. I just remember my dad telling me about it when I was little, about how, you know, and he kind of mischaracterized. Oh, it was terrible. No one liked it. It wasn't, I guess it wasn't terrible.
No, and no one liked the idea of it. A lot of people like the product of it, but
so
the idea is what they're buying.
We've got to factor in, like, especially as small business owners, what is the idea we're selling?
Yes.
Obviously we don't have the same burden as Coca-Cola, as having it be a name, but our product, it's some idea for, it represents an idea of something for our clients. It represents something, and I think we should know what that is. And maybe the best thing we can do is just ask, what does this really mean to you? What role do we play in our lives? And the more we like talk to our clients, talk to our consumers, talk to our customers, I think we learn a lot. I know in my business, I thought I was really communicating the luxury experience that we were trying to deliver on. And there were some things that we were doing as a business that our clients did not care about. They didn't care, even though it took a lot of work for us. And we thought it was a luxury experience. So
it's all about perception, isn't it?
Well, hey, thanks so much for coming on, Jen. It was a great conversation. You have a book out this year.
I do have a new book. Yes. The OG book is Choice Hacking.
Yeah.
Obviously. But yeah, no, I have just a nice little guidebook to solving problems, actually. So it's called How to Solve Impossible Problems. And so it basically goes through things like first principles thinking and lateral thinking and all these different ways that you can kind of, use a tool, or how tools have been used in the past to solve, hairy challenges, impossible problems.
That's awesome. And where can people get it?
Amazon. All over Amazon, pretty much anywhere,
With the buy
ebooks
now
are
button.
sold. Yes, with the buy now button. You're allowed to impulse buy my book. That's it.
That is all you can do. So tell everyone where they can find you. Instagram, you're at Choice Hacking.
Yep, at Choice Hacking on Instagram, choicehacking.com. You can find consulting. I work with a lot of companies of all sizes, so startups, scale-ups, Fortune 500s. And we're across TikTok everywhere. Everywhere is Choice Hacking.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much.
Absolutely.
I know I learned a lot, and we'll see you next time.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
So you just got here.
I did.
Right at the tail end of when I was talking to Jen.
I heard you wrapping up, and that was the end of it.
Well, yeah. I mean, obviously, I've got her on Zoom, so I can't. I was like, oh, should I like tell her that you're here? But then we were kind of done, so I didn't.
Well, I was so excited that we could get her back because I felt like there was so much that we had to talk. We didn't get to even touch on all the stuff.
No, and that's how I felt today. I mean, like we talk, and she is such an expert in her field that there's nothing we can talk about where Jen doesn't have a story.
Yeah.
I mean, she's got a company that made a decision that went well or went poorly for every comment that you could make on choices and decisions.
Yeah.
So it's so awesome to talk to her about this because we spend so much time thinking about decisions and talking about decisions, and we lean towards personal decision making versus corporate decision making.
Of course.
And she focuses on the decisions that companies make and how those decisions may affect individuals.
I think there are still basic concepts on how you think about a decision that are applicable, which is why I love having her on.
Decisions is the macro, and then there's a lot of micro categories within.
Well, there are group decisions, corporate decisions, personal decisions. Yeah.
So we talked about. I mean, oh man, we one of the biggest things that I think I got away from or got away with. Why was I going to say that? Took away, got from.
I know
it's a combination.
I knew what you're trying to say.
We talked about the endowment effect. You familiar with that?
Oh, it sounds like something I should be in the business I'm in. That sounds like that's something I should know. But I'm going to say no, so you can tell me.
I was worried.
Oh, by the way, just so you're going to tell me, and then afterwards, I'm going to pretend like I, of course, knew.
I mean,
I'm of course going to do that.
I knew you well. I know you well enough to know that was happening regardless.
Yes.
So I was worried for a second that you were going to go a different direction with the endowment effect. I'm not going there.
I don't know anything about that.
Doesn't apply.
It does not apply.
Runs in the family. Okay.
All right.
So the endowment effect. Essentially, it is, and obviously you listen to the episode, Jen's going to do a better job of explaining it, but it's that we kind of bond with products through a variety of different methods. And once we bond with them, even if we haven't purchased them, we feel some sort of like ownership. So a couple of different examples I'll share with you. One is IKEA. So you go through IKEA, it's a long snake design. You go in the entrance and then you go out the
Gruen
exit.
effect.
Yes. So we talked about that.
I know about that.
And I actually, when she brought that Gruen effect, I was like, oh, I know the Gruen effect because of my dad. So the endowment effect, you put it in the cart and it's like, well, it's mine now.
Yes. Okay.
Right.
Yes.
So the more precisely, I think the endowment effect is like when I can kind of like associate subconsciously myself directly with this product. So like when we are scrolling through online shopping, we're touching products and we're like clicking on them. Well, it's like, oh, it's like I've kind of like associated myself with it. So me just like even clicking on a product, I'm far more likely to
once you put it in the cart.
Putting it in the cart, you're way more likely.
Mm-hmm.
Another part of it is she used an example of a phone. I'll use like a coffee cup, for example.
Right.
You have two coffee cups that are identical that are both on the website for you to purchase. Same price, same color, same design, same everything. One of them, it's marketed with just a picture of the cup, and the other, it's a picture of a hand holding the cup. And the one with the hand holding the cup, so much more likely to be purchased, because I can associate that subconsciously. Oh, that's like me holding the cup. And they just kind of put these characteristics on it. Now, Jen might listen to this in the same way that we talked to Jeremy about your golf tips. Right. And she might listen to this and go, wow, Sanger, that's not what I said.
You really misinterpreted.
You got this so wrong.
All right. So, I wish I could ask her this. All right. So does the ethnicity of the hand have any correlation to?
Should have asked that.
Oh, yeah. We'll have to have her back a third time.
I'm not going to.
Or the gender of the hand, or anything. Yeah, I have so many questions.
Yeah. I mean, it might.
Well, I had heard a study similar to this, so it's the same kind of concept, where the professor kind of divided the room and randomly picked people to get some little prize, some little, stupid trinket, keychain, or whatever, and then they had people value what they would pay for that. Right. Okay. How much they would pay for this stupid keychain. And then they asked the people what they would sell it for. Right. And it's the same stupid keychain. Right. And they didn't have it 2 seconds ago.
Okay.
So the people that had the keychain always valued it like at $6, and the people who didn't have it and would buy it would only value it at like $4, something stupid like that consistently. So same kind of effect, but it's interesting that you talk about that same effect correlates to a picture of a hand in a picture, or putting it in the shopping cart, or, those types of things. That's really, I feel so manipulated as I travel through retail experiences now after talking with her.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, like the Gruen effect.
Yeah.
She said, I don't know if you knew this, but Gruen what distances himself later in life from his name being associated with that effect, because he felt like it was manipulative. He was like, I don't want to be.
Yeah, this is not a cool thing.
I don't want people to think like I'm okay.
Like I made it up.
Yeah, exactly. He kind of made it up on accident and got associated with it. But yeah, if I had to give future Sanger advice, here's what I would give future Sanger advice. And that what I hope I personally take away from my conversation with Jen is that I want to not be afraid to try things. Personally and with my business, because in all of these stories, we had a tendency to share stories of mistakes because it's more fun to talk about the companies that did it wrong.
Oh, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
We talked about like new code.
You hardly notice the ones that do it right.
Yeah. Don't know. It takes a lot of observation.
It's like we'll never catch the perfect crime.
It takes a lot of observation to realize the ones that went really well. Right. Because they're so well that we don't notice it. Right. The stories that we have had a tendency to talk about today were the ones that were mistakes, like New Coke. We talked about that, just blunder, BMW trying to nickel and dime.
Isn't it funny that the New Coke example becomes the classic example?
It's the original bad decision. So we had a tendency to talk about bad decisions, but I asked Jen, I'm like, well, what can we do as business owners if we're looking to make a change, in our market group, and we're trying to do this? And basically she was like, I mean, you gotta wing it. Like, we're all winging it. She
what does she mean by that?
She means by just that. I asked her specifically, I don't want to get into the conversation because you can listen to it. Right. There's a point in the conversation where, we kind of realize, hey, there's the best thing that you can do to learn and to grow is to make decisions and learn from those decisions. Okay. You're not going to have all the information. Not every single decision you're going to make is going to be perfect and great. Make decisions, move forward. You will learn. Sometimes you'll have great outcomes. Sometimes you won't. We talk about this epic failure of New Coke. Well, guess what? It probably ultimately saved Coke. I mean, is Coke who Coke is and what Coke is now without having learned the lessons of New Coke? I don't know. But we wouldn't look at Coca-Cola as a failure.
Right.
Coca-Cola is an extraordinary success.
Right. They're killing it. Yeah.
Right. So we point out new Coke. Oh, I don't want my business to have a new Coke moment.
Right.
Well, geez, I'm going to have some mistakes. And if I'm so afraid of having mistakes, I'm not going to ever change. I'm not going to ever adapt, and I'm not ever going to learn. So I got to be willing, and I got to know that I'm going to mess up. I'm going to roll something out that's going to get wildly rejected by my customers. I'm going to make a choice with branding that's just going to fall flat. I'm going to do some things that don't work, and that's fine, and that's okay, because at least I'm doing something. And if I'm doing something and I'm making decisions, I'm learning. You just made a great decision to listen to this episode of Decidedly. Make another great decision and leave us a 5-star review wherever you listen to podcasts. We appreciate your support. It helps others find our community and defeat bad decision-making in their own lives. For more daily decision-making insights, check us out at decidedlypodcast.com and on Facebook and Instagram at Decidedly Podcast. Thanks again for listening. I'm Sanger Smith, and this is Decidedly.
Insights, advice, and comments provided by Sean Smith, Sanger Smith, and speakers identified as part of the Decidedly podcast should not be considered recommendations. Speakers not identified as members of Decidedly are expressing their opinion, and their statements should not be construed as reflecting the views of the Decidedly team. This podcast is produced solely for informational purposes, not personalized advice.